Hi everyone, it's Friday, it's coffee and chat time. I have got my coffee mug for once. It's full of hot chocolate though, not coffee, and it's got my favourite place in it. I'd rather be in Rosniger, but I don't think you can read that, which is probably where I would prefer to be, although in fairness, Oxfordshire is gorgeously cloudy today. I'm trying not to get too depressed about the weather, if I'm honest. There are a host of you online, which is great. Some of you might not be familiar with the Citrix application because obviously Zoom and Teams seems to be where we're spending all of our time at the moment. But if you have any questions at any time, you'll see a chat function. Just throw those questions in there. I'm not going to ask Neil to focus on those. I'll look at those and bring them into the conversation as we go through. But it's great to see so many of you online. I'd like to introduce you all to Neil, who we have known each other for quite some time in a very roundabout sort of way. I think Neil probably knows my husband better than me, which is quite bizarre, and I knew his wife better than I knew him, which is equally quite bizarre. So we've got quite a lot to talk about, but the first and most important piece is this amazing book that he has written, which I absolutely love. And Neil, this is a real girly thing to say, and I'm probably not allowed to say that anymore because it's not PC. But you know, the thing I really love about it is the color of the outside. So it changes color depending on what section you're in. How clever was that from an editorial perspective? I really love it. Why, let's just start with the why did you design it like that? Was that somebody else's idea or did you come up with it?
No, it was somebody else's idea. But I love it. I absolutely love it. At first, I thought, yeah, I know. I thought it was too much at first. I looked at it and I thought, is that? But I've got used to it. You know, like you get used to something when you've seen it a few times, and I love it now. And it really stands out. It's for sale in a local coffee shop, and it's great. You walk in there and this thing, it sort of shines on the wall. So no, I love it, and the design is great. I had a great designer.
I have a friend who puts books on the shelf that way round rather than that way round, and this book would be brilliant for that because of the different colors of the end pages. But also what the editor has obviously done is pull out some of your quotes fairly regularly as well, and that seems to work very effectively. Again, was that a conscious decision?
Yeah, it's a simple framework. The idea is you don't wade through it. You probably don't read it in one sitting, although lots of people are, but it's more of a guidebook that you can dip into for leadership. You can scan it, get a feeling for what's in it, and then go where you want to go. It's got a really good guide. The index at the front, I think, helps people navigate it. And yeah, the quotes, I suppose they're to keep people interested or to give it a bit of a handrail on the way through.
Yeah, no, I think it's really canny. So what made you think, I know, I'm going to write a book?
Lockdown. like lots of people in leadership development and training, last March, I lost a lot of work and I found myself sat at home, lovely weather, but after the first week of sitting in the sun, I thought I've got to do something. So actually the book is the outcome of something else, another project. So what I actually did was write the scripts for 30 videos about leadership and team development, which are now for sale. And having done all the writing of those scripts, which was a lot, it's 25,000 words. I've never written 25,000 words before. I never intend to do it again. I thought, I'm not going to waste this. I've made something good. So I repurposed it. I spent another few weeks rewriting it, so it's come together as the book.
Now, this was really interesting. We've had quite a few authors on Coffee and Chat, and one of the things they've been saying is that actually that that for whatever reason the publishing houses have slowed down on publishing because I guess because of the pandemic. Even though I think most people are reading more. I'm on my 9th book this year, I'm very proud to say, one of which is yours. But what I found really interesting was that they were saying it was taking quite some time to get a book to the publisher. You obviously, with this one, they felt that it had a place in the market almost straight away, which is burlient.
I self-published it, Cath. That's why. So if you self-publish, that's all. This is a Jurd production with this brilliant guy Gresty who did the graphics for it. To put it through a publishing house is extremely slow. I mean, and also that assumes that a publishing house want it, and I hadn't, because it's a first book. It's really hard to get a first book picked up. So no, I took a risk on it, and I've paid for this. So this
but
is
yeah, I mean, it's been exceptionally well received. I mean, there's the 5-star reviews all the way through on Amazon, aren't there?
yeah, I know.
So have you done another rerun? Have you actually had to rerun it yet?
Not yet, but I think we will have to. Yeah, I mean, it's selling really well, and I don't know how many, but there were 60 5-star reviews. Well, all the reviews on Amazon are 5-star, so I think it's going to take off.
No, it's fabulous. It's fabulous. So it's got a series of sections in it. So it starts obviously with leadership, and then people, and then the team, which is, you know, quite traditional, that format. And I know that you've just mentioned the videos that you've also done. That's also in that sort of format, isn't it? It starts the introspective piece, and then it's that you and the team, and you know, it takes that three-approached structure. Would that be a fair comment?
Yeah, it's a very similar. The book and the videos have got a really similar framework, and the videos are as easy as the book. So the videos are a series of, they're generally about 8 minutes. It's me explaining stuff. The graphics are quite similar to the graphics on the book, and they're really good for busy people, for people who might have half an hour free and want to learn something or discuss it with their team. So they're in use with the NHS. Actually have bought quite a lot of users for the videos.
Oh, that's brilliant. So it made me smile that you said, which you know, a lot of leadership manuals don't say. You made the comment that you feel that leadership can be taught, and I know that you obviously have taught leadership in your past. Some of the people listening won't necessarily know your past, but where do you get all your leadership thinking from?
I read a lot, like you say. You've read 9 books this year. I don't know what I've read, but I read a lot. I've just read Hal Moore, who's a well-known, well, the We Were Soldiers, the film We Were Soldiers, that's Hal Moore at the heart of it. His biography is superb, and Hal Moore on leadership. But I just read a lot on leadership. As I think you were probably referring to, I was an instructor at Sandhurst for 2 years, and I was also on the Army Officer Selection Board for 2 years. And then for the last 10, I have done various things, but I was a course director for the Leadership Trust. So I've got experience of running a lot of leadership training. So it's a combination of reading and thinking. And what I've come up with after all of that, which I hope the book reflects, is that it's not hard. Leadership is simple. And you can get, I mean, if I was to look up at my bookshelves, there are so many books that probably confuse the issue, that they try to, it's intellectualized too much. It's turned into an academic thing, and it's really not. It's just about knowing where you're going and being good with people.
Now, your latest, I think this week, you put out a LinkedIn post which had 2 images of you briefing. One of them was with some of your soldiers, and another one was in an ops room. I think you were suggesting that a very different leadership style was required according to the environment that you were in. Was that sort of the message you were after?
I think I was, so that particular post was 2 pictures, and one was just briefing the importance of sharing what you know. So it was actually the briefing when we moved our operation from Scheibe. I don't know who's listening to this, but from Scheibe to the contingency operating base, the COB, and it was a huge thing, moving a logistics squadron with all of our vehicles, all of the warehousing, everything that we had from one place to another. So that was the briefing for that. And if you look closely at the picture, you'll see a very good model of exactly where we were going. No, the other one was me chatting. I did a thing where every week sometimes a couple of times a week, I'd get a group of young soldiers together. We'd try and do it in Nepali because it was a Gurkha squadron, but I would chat with them, and it wasn't really work related. It was just to get to know them and for them to get to know me, and we just talked. But then they could ask questions about stuff. It gave me an easy connection to people. So it's more about the leader connecting to people. And I guess a lot of the stuff in the book is things I tried out in the army. And I think I make the point in the book. I didn't always get it right, but I remember the things I got wrong and the things that I got right. And the books maybe brings that together.
I think Capita have just put out a brilliant advert, actually, which I saw Johnny Mercer retweeted today, which is all about parachute training. And the comment is that the army allow you to fail at things, and you know the lesson from failure is as important as the lesson from success, which I thought was a really interesting telling point. And Johnny picks up on that and said that he found that very much so in his past. But you do far more than just write a book. I mean, this is the first time you've written a book. It's very successful, your first publishing piece, but you're far more involved in other things apart from just writing a book. That seems quite mammoth to me. So what else are you doing with your time, Neil, now?
Well, as we were talking about earlier, there's homeschooling going on, but my girls are pretty good, so that's not been overwhelming. I also set up a charity 11 years ago, which raises money for service charities and encouraging extracurricular activity for young people, and particularly underprivileged young people. That links to the Army Cadet Force, where I'm director of initial officer training for the Army Cadet Force, and I was Commandant of Lancashire Army Cadets, which is it's quite a big organisation. What else? Those are probably the headlines, Cath. Those are probably the main things.
But the charity and the work that you've done in the charity over the last 10 years, is it 10 years that it's been running now? You know, that the leadership that you've had to, you know, because that started literally from nothing. You set the whole thing up, and you've obviously showed and used a lot of leadership in that. Which of your, I mean, is it possible to identify transferable skills that you've gone actually doing that communication piece that you were talking about with your young soldiers is really important, and I would always do that with a new group, and that I've brought that forward in the work that I do in the charity sector? Is it possible to identify things like that?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, all of those things that I think, when I look back, the things that I think either I did well or probably more often I saw other people do well. I worked for a guy called Dave Golding. He was a REME Lieutenant Colonel, but he was our CO. Do you know Dave? I don't know whether you.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, he's a cracking bloke. And Dave was my CO in Iraq, where I was a squadron commander. And the thing I learned from him was just to be calm, just always calm, Dave, always calm. He used to take time most days to just go and spend 20 minutes on his own and clear his head. And then later I worked for him at British Sugar. And again, I saw the same thing. He made it look easy by controlling himself and staying calm. So often the stuff that has made it into the book is things I've seen other people do. I also mentioned Nigel Williams, who's a great outdoorsman. He was the head of training at Glenmore Lodge, and I've seen him under pressure. And again, I can't remember where, but it's in the book. I talk about blue zone leadership, leaders who just exude positivity and calm. And I've seen Nigel with a semi-lost group with injured people after dark, trying to find the hut that would keep us alive at night in Norway. And again, just rigidly calm, totally reassuring. So it's lessons like that I've probably learned the most from. I've probably learned more from other good leaders than from.
Oh, that's not true. That's not. Those of us that know you and know of you know that that's not true, Neil. But so the one thing I've been reading a huge amount recently is about this concept of transferable skills, particularly for people that are leaving the military, and the transferable skill of resilience, which I think is inherent in what most military people have done. And how useful it is. And I had to laugh at a meme the other day that was talking about don't ask them what they can do, but ask them what they can't do, because it won't be very much. Have you seen any of that? I mean, that transferable piece, that resilience piece, is that a big theme for you?
You may have seen, you mentioned that you saw some of my LinkedIn posts, Cath, and I put something on there about the whole COVID experience being like an operational tour in many ways. In fact, we were chatting about that just before this anyway, weren't we? And yeah, I think there's a sort of acceptance. There's sometimes knowing what you can accept and what you can change. And I think a lot of, I say our mindset, I mean, that implies everyone in the forces is the same, and that's just not true, is it? But I think a positive forces mindset is to split things up, and if you can't affect them, then maybe don't let them affect you too much. And I like to think that I do that. And where something's wrong, if I've got the capacity to change it, I will try and change it. And if I haven't, I don't get too bothered about it.
So for you, the most difficult part of this book, what was, I mean, previous authors we've had, it was cutting it down or rewriting it after it had gone to the editor. What was the most difficult? I mean, you had the idea, you had the source material, you said that you'd written thousands of words and you'd undertaken a whole load of what are brilliant bite-sized pieces of learning. But what was the most difficult piece of this? Is it just the getting going? Is it coming up with the idea? Is it the cutting it down? What was the thing that, made you pull your hair out?
Well, when you say just the getting going, yeah, I mean, it's taken me 50 years to get going on it. So possibly it took the change of pace that lockdown brought, but at a more detailed level, it was spell checking, actually, knocking out lots of words about something that you know, or in my case, that I feel, that I know, that I believe. Quite easy to write stuff. Then going back and finding all of those little spelling errors, or those, I have little typos that I do that are just, every time I type certain words, they come out wrong. From, F-R-O-M, I will always write form, always. And it's just, so finding all of those, and I was really lucky. Again, I was helped by a guy, Andy Thackway, who's another army officer, and Paul Vickerman, two blokes who gave me a lot of their time going through finding my mistakes. That really helped, because you're near the end. By the time you're getting into spelling mistakes, you're so nearly there.
And you're also bored of it. I can't reread it again. It's like, oh, really? Somebody else did the editorial for me.
Yeah, and every time I was actually quite depressed, I'd open it and think, oh, no, I don't want to read it in case I find another mistake. But I think there are 2 mistakes in it that I know of, and that's what we found.
That's a challenge, everyone that's out there listening. There are 33 people on this call. You never know, they might be finding more mistakes for you. Now, I love it, and I love the way that I love it. It's written in a really positive way. It's got a whole host of nice little icons in it, so it breaks up the eyesight, which is great. It's got exercises in it. You can tell you're a born trainer, because there's reflection and exercises as you go along. There's images and examples, so it keys into all of those different ways that people learn. I mean, I'm a big storyteller when I'm teaching, and there are a whole host of examples which are basically stories that you're putting over, which I think are great. And then, as we've said, we're breaking up fairly regularly with quotes, which seem to work really, really effectively within the whole of the book. I think it's a really well put together piece of work, and I think you should be really, really proud of it. So have the girls read it yet?
No. No. There are a few people around. It's funny, your friends are often the last ones to actually read it. So no, they haven't. But then, generally speaking, I mean, parents don't impress their own children much, do we?
No, that's true. That's true enough. So I've got to bring us to the bit that always makes me smile. And I've looked at this book on multiple occasions now, but the bit that I just thought was so funny, and I did think, I wonder he's checked this with his kids, is the smartphone analogy. Tell everybody about the smartphone analogy.
Just the idea that people are very different from each other. And if you, the way I've explained it in there is people who can start, if you were to buy 2 smartphones, initially they'd be identical, but the user of one smartphone would put different apps on, might decorate it differently, which yes, my children do. One has Tipp-Ex'd the back of her smartphone to decorate it, but they'll decorate it differently. They put different apps on, they'll store different information, take different photos, and after a year they're absolutely unrecognizable. They might still look the same, but they probably won't. They'll have different dents, which is obviously a bit of a metaphor. And people are very much the same. You look around a room of people who may be dressed similarly, or may be working for the same company, and you might make the assumption that we all think the same things. And from running loads of courses, one of the things I often stop and ask people is how they're feeling. How do you feel? What's your overriding emotion? And people are always really surprised that other people in the room have such different feelings and emotions. And it's because of what's below the surface, the apps that they're carrying, the pictures that are in their mind. So yeah, that's what the smartphone analogy is. I probably explain it better in the book.
No, it's when you're going through the chapter headings, it's the one that instantly pulls your eye, because it's like, smartphone, what on earth are we talking about smartphones in the middle of the leadership book, which is why it strikes me. So let's just turn for a moment to the charity, because it's an amazing charity put together in memory of an amazing woman. Its main way of raising money has always been its primary ball. Obviously you weren't able to hold that this year, so how are you moving forward with the charity under the pandemic?
We took a dent, obviously, and we were hanging in there for a while, hoping that we'd be able to run the ball last year. But we cancelled in good time, because I could just see otherwise we were going to invest a lot of time in something shaky. So we cancelled it a few months before. It hit us, actually. It did hit us. I think most charities, probably all charities, have been hit.
Yeah, I think it's a big problem.
Yeah. People don't feel safe enough to give away any discretionary income, I think. And also it's hard to run events. So we've got some really brilliant new trustees that we've just brought in, and they've brought some energy to us, so some new events. Our feeling is we should be moving with the world, so doing more online stuff, asking people to do sponsored events for us. So Rachel Diss, one of our new trustees, she has done 5 1-mile swims in the lakes and waters of Cumbria over the Christmas period. It was incredible. She was breaking the ice to do it. Great for publicity around here.
Yeah.
And then also she raised something like £1,000 from doing it. So we're trying to do more online stuff, but we also hopefully will be running the ball this year, which is always a big winner. It makes usually around 15 to 20,000 pounds. So it's a big anchor of our fundraising.
Yeah. So it's building for the next piece. We found we've got some service families in the village that I live in, and they have, as a community, stuck together, which is great, but there are obvious challenges with regards to the fact that some of the partners are away, some families are away, and the children don't have, they're in a much smaller community. So it's a community within a community. There's only one partner there. And the children are fairly obviously on occasion struggling. And I think that everything that you're doing that is helping that social mobility is absolutely wonderful, and is absolutely where most of us want to be. So it's a thank you for that for the rest of us. I've got no questions in chat yet, and that surprises me, because you lot are usually quite chatty. So if there are any questions, we've only got probably another 6 or 7 minutes to go. So if there are any questions, just pop them into chat for me. It's on the right hand side of your bar, and hopefully we can take some questions to Neil before we start to close up. We are, as I think a lot of people are doing as a business, we're now starting to think about where do we go with these chat sessions, and we've been exceptionally fortunate in our county in that they've just opened a brand new radio station. So we've got this new radio station in Oxfordshire on DAB, which is called Get Radio, which I've got to introduce you to, actually, Neil. You'd be very good on it. And they are doing quite a lot of work for business and the charity sector and the arts sector in the county. So we're going to probably do a few more months of coffee and chat, but probably not continue after that, because we're putting quite a lot of time into the local radio station. So if there are other things that you thought has worked in the past, then please let us know, because we're really interested in it. You know, Neil, I'm so grateful for you coming on board with us today. I can't speak more highly of this book. I'm really hoping that you've given some books to Sandhurst, because it's the type of thing that they like in their library. So
The Commandant has a copy.
well, he, as his good old logistics core, I would have expected him to have had a copy, yes. So, you know, it's good to see that that's there, and hopefully they've also got it in the library at Westbury. If it's, have you sent it over there as well?
No. Does anyone have time to visit? I didn't know there was a library at Westbury. So
Oh, there is a library there. I think, you know, I know you used to work there, so I think you need to send a book there too.
yeah, no, I didn't know there was a library there. You see, the thing is, when you're there, it's really a very busy place.
Well, I'm still trying to get my head round, and nobody's told me yet, and why should they? Because it's got nothing to do with me. But I'm really interested in how they're managing to do some of the tests that they do at Westbury in a COVID-safe environment. That's quite an interest. I'm not sure how they've done that. I'm sure they have, but
Yeah,
you know, that pivot to it, I think, would be really fascinating to understand. There should be a documentary on that, just on that alone. You know, what they're doing in selection, when they often do selection by asking people to do physical activities and the interaction between physical people. You know, quite an interesting.
I know they've kept going though, and so they've obviously managed.
They've pivoted in some way, yeah. Well, really great to see you, and thank you so much for your time today, Neil. I'm really grateful, and thank you everyone that's been online. No questions, much to my surprise, Neil. But really great to see you, and hopefully we'll catch up soon. And make sure that you tell me about the ball this autumn, and we'll make sure that we've got ourselves a table down there. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Cath. Lovely to see you.
You take care. Speak
Thank
to you
you.
soon.
Thank
Bye bye
you.
now.
Bye.